They're
present.
friends. We drink.
I'm really excited to hear you present.
Well, you were there, Susan.
I know. I was there. I was there for one of it, and it was great. But to see it all come together, it's
Well, hopefully I do it justice to presentation. So
I think you can go ahead, Susan, and let everybody introduce themselves.
okay. Let's start with introductions. I'm Susan Summers, and I work with Arch on a number of things. One of my favorite things is sustainability, because I get to talk with some of the smartest people in the field who are doing this marvelous work. And so thank you for that. And looking forward to the presentation this morning. Anybody else want to jump in and say who you are?
Hi, I'm Doris.
Hi,
Doris. I'm
Doris.
from the new. How are you, Susan? Hi, Jill.
Hi,
Good.
Dora.
Corey, I'm really looking forward to your presentation.
Don't make
So
her
I'm with
nervous.
I'm with the New York State Caregiving and Respite Coalition.
Anybody else feel brave?
I'll go. Good afternoon. My name's Nick Slentz. I'm with the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehabilitative Services. I'm a relatively new face at this gathering. My schedule is finally cleared enough where I can start getting a little bit more involved in what Arch is doing, which has been on my to-do list for a while. So I'm very excited about today. I'm also a former New Yorker, so shout out.
Oh, hey.
Welcome, Nick. This is a really small, strong, supportive group that gets a lot done. So yeah, we're really glad you're here with us and hope you're ready to work along with us.
Do my best.
Welcome, Nick. I'm Nadine with Oklahoma Aging Services. Lifespan is one of the various grants I have, but been around for a while and glad to see everybody today. Like I said, I may have to jump off, but I'll try to stay on as long as I can.
And we haven't heard from Abby. Abby, are you there?
I
Hi,
don't think
it's
she's
Abby.
on. Oh, she is.
I'm here. I have my camera on for you today, Doris.
I don't see you.
You don't?
I'll have to go to a bigger view, I guess.
Gallery view should enable you to see everybody.
mhm.
Oh, there you are.
Well, I'm Abby. I'm with the New York State Office for the Aging.
Welcome, Abby. And I think you're
Thank you.
Good work. Good work, Abby. Turning on your camera. My New York State people are very shy.
yeah, you're known for that. Who have I missed? Did I see Dina on?
She was, but I don't see her now.
Okay.
Dina just texted me and she said she got kicked out of the meeting and now she can't get back in.
Oh,
Oh,
So
well, Brooke is with us too. from
Yeah.
Montana.
oh, good. Hi, Brooke.
Hello.
Would you introduce yourself to the group? We've got a couple of new people.
Oh, sure. Sorry. My name
No,
is
that's
Brooke
okay.
Bartholomew. I'm the executive
No.
director of the.
We're glad you're here.
In Montana. It's nice to be here. Thank you. And we do a lifespan respite voucher system across the whole state of Montana. It's a great program and it's really helping a lot of people. It seemed like it took a little lull for a while there, but it seems around like the holidays and such, people really started using their vouchers again. So that was good to see and to know that those people are getting the breaks that they need during such a tough time.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great news.
Thanks for having me.
yeah, that is great news. So is that everybody? Was Dina able to get back on?
I don't see her.
Okay, well, Dina may join us and that would be great. I sent around at the 11th hour a running list of resources that I went back and listened to our last meeting in November and I put together different resources that came up. And I just thought as they come up over time, I'll keep adding to those. I didn't I didn't send out New York's documents because I had sent them out before and I thought I would just ask who wanted those or ask if you want me to send them to the whole group. They had developed their initial logic model, beautiful logic model, and the beautiful financing strategies logic model with a great deal of detail, and especially with what they want to sustain. And they also had a summit agenda for those of you thinking about doing planning that might be helpful. So what's the consensus? Should I just resend it? I'd sent it out like a long time ago. Should I just resend it to the whole group? Yeah, and if you already have it, just ignore it. Okay, I will do that.
I'm guessing that most of it is up on the website, Susan, if I have it.
Did we post those on the website?
I'll double check. We can do that too, so that it's there forever.
Okay, and if we did post it, I'll add the link to that, the resource list too, and I'll also send it out. Okay, so without further ado, let's hear from Corey about the Nevada Lifespan Respite Care Coalition 2020 action plan. As Corey, you may have heard Corey mention, I was there. I sat in one of the planning meetings and they graciously let me sit in. I think Jill sat in one too. And it was really active, collaborative, inspiring. So I can't wait to see and hear about the final product. Corey, it's all yours.
That's a really big buildup. Thanks.
Good.
I'm Corey Lutz, and this morning I'm representing the Nevada Lifespan Respite Care Coalition. I also work for Helping Hands of Vegas Valley, and that is my full-time job, and I'm the respite director for that, and we run a voucher program for the respite. Just to clarify how I am. So the Nevada Lifespan Care Coalition is a volunteer coalition statewide, and we are like many of the other states. We're very, we have a city here and a city here and a lot of rural in between. People are like, yeah, Las Vegas and Reno, those are the only two areas, right? Now there's a lot of area in between, and it is one of our goals as the coalition to reach those areas and make sure they have access and awareness, and that is our primary function with the coalition. As you guys see, our first thing is to raise awareness and to ensure people understand that it's okay to ask for help. So that's been one of our biggest things on our objectives. We had a summit or a strategic planning last July, and that's what this is based off of. And for the most part, it's a 5-page thing that I know Susan and Jill have sent around.
I just posted it. Can you all see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Jill. So as you can see, we were trying to work on the SMART system, specific, measurable, applicable, realistic timeframes. So we have very specific goals that we were trying to meet and accomplish. And for such a volunteer-based coalition, I think for the most part, we did reach a lot of them, and we're still in the process of reaching the rest of them. We have had a couple changes, but I'll go over that in a minute. So in the short race, we were trying to favorable conditions we need to create or to achieve our goals. We need to be able to raise the awareness. We need to advocate for all of the caregivers throughout the state. And we wanted to use our outreach and education. Of course, that has been modified a little bit to also do it via Zoom and to figure out how to do that, especially in the rurals where there are not, the internet is not as good, and it's harder to reach those people in general. Our second goal was to, we wanted to increase the respite workers to adequately meet the needs in targeted communities, identify the non-traditional resources for respite in rural communities, and to empower the consumers to use their voice to advocate for themselves. Because if the caregivers can't be an advocate for their patients, then who else is going to do it besides you know, they've got to be the primary person advocating for their person. And so we are one of our action plans that was on the page 2. We were going to, we registered, we participated and recruited at least one family. That was accomplished. We made sure that all of us were reaching out to invite people to the summit to give their feedback, because it's important to have the caregiver's perspective, because we're not the ones that are on the front line, they are. Number 2 action plan was to review the outcome of the ad campaign and its effects in the 60-day assessment of what the community coalitions are currently advocating. So we did not have a website up until last year, and we had Facebook, and as Jill was so nice enough to put on there, welcome to the 21st century, when we finally got a Facebook. That was the first thing Arch did, and I still remember that fondly. Because it's sort of like kicking and screaming. You're bringing, you know, a toddler into the new world, and it's just sometimes getting everybody on board is not the easiest. So we finally got a grant big enough to develop a website and keep it sustained. And we have it paid through this year to keep somebody updating it and keeping our keywords going and things like that. And the monthly meetings have been very encouraging. And actually the roles have been one of the biggest click-throughs and stuff. So we've been very, very excited about that. I don't understand all of it, but I know they say it's good and we're reaching the rules. So that's what we're focused on. I'm learning a lot about web design and how it works and what you need to do with Google Ads and all that. Anybody need a 5th job? You know what I mean? So that's how it is, sort of. We developed we are still developing, and we did develop a pretty good plan for ongoing role awareness and outreach. We modified our in-person presentation to be virtual. We have access to it all, and we have made a couple presentations. It's a little bit harder. Some of the rural areas that we were trying to present to, they weren't able to get their coalitions together to for us to present to, because Zoom was an issue. We're still, obviously that's still an ongoing thing that we're doing. We like I'm sit on other boards for other, or not sit on other boards, I attend other coalition meetings for in the rural areas. We did a survey or an assessment every time that we gave a presentation, and it was all favorable. A lot of people didn't know what the word respite was. Of course, we all come into contact with that, and that's something that we all deal with. And they're like, I want that housekeeping grant. I'm like, let me tell you how many times my eyes roll about that. Can I get the housekeepers? No. If that was the case, I would be getting them. Through the coalition, we were also trying to engage with families who were feeling isolated and have little control. We connected with families and seniors. 5 and 6 are sort of the same. We have a wonderful group here in Nevada called Seniors in Service. They are primarily up north in Washoe County. And they got a wonderful, wonderful grant where they were able to get out Kindle Fires to specifically seniors in the rurals up north that didn't have like iPads or what have you to get on, or they didn't, you know how to use their phones. Well, great, we gave them an iPad or a Kindle Fire, but now what are they going to do with it? How are they going to connect with their family members or do that? Well, they also gave them internet. So that was a way to do that and keep get them in the know. So through Nevada Can, which was a ADSD initiative, they were able to get support in that way through the Kindle Fires that they got. So so that has been accomplished, but obviously it's still ongoing. And they're actually, the grant got expanded, so now they're reaching out further, not just the upper northern counties. So we have been doing all that, and that's good. So that was our goal one. So in all reality, we have met those, and they're continuing. Obviously, it's not just once it's done, yeah, we're going to ignore it. No. So goal 2 was to build and strengthen our capacity for the collective action and impact. So what we did is we were told right before the summit that Aging and Disability had applied for a grant to incorporate the coalition under their umbrella. So a majority of us, all but one, learned about that during the summit. That was sort of a shock, and we were sort of like, oh, okay. So when we did the recap of it, we wanted to know a little bit more about what that was going to entail and how that was going to work. So we had to get a copy of the grant and what their goal and their vision of incorporating us into their umbrella was going to be. So we, at that point, we also had other grants that we were, through our fiscal agent, we were submitting to build and strengthen. And at that point, we only had one. Later on, we submitted one grant, and then we had 4 other ones. At this time, we haven't heard positively on any of them, unfortunately. We have been told definitely that we did not get the Hawkins Foundation one. But of course, we're still doing that. Knowing that we were learning that we were coming to be under the state, we contacted other states to see that we're under their state model, their ADSD. So we, a few of us contacted different state areas. I contacted some people in Texas to see how it worked and how they liked being under their state, and if they were paid and volunteer and things like that. We accomplished that. We called, I think 5 of us called that many states. Most people were positive about it. But most people had, like, I talked to Brittany in Alabama, and she works under the state, and she's very, very positive, and she's very, they're employed under the state. Of course, we're still volunteers, so it's a little bit different. Although the state will be hiring an executive director and a project manager for us. And we all know the name of the executive director that we will have. It's Cheryl. So that's always a great thing for us because she's a known entity and she is an advocate for us and for lifespan respite in general. We also had Nevada CAN as a statewide plan that provides support through 101 groups. We encouraged all of the Nevada Lifespan Respite Care members to go to the website, familiarize themselves, possibly become advocates in their own right. I started to do it. It can be time consuming, especially when you have a full-time job and you're doing the volunteer. Susan Goulis, our past president, she was president for the last 2 years. She leads a peer group and she does that every week and it's pretty awesome. And it was originally going to only be during the COVID section, but they have expanded it and they got a grant to keep it going. So they refer people to us and vice versa. So we're getting our word out that way as well. We're worried about Healthy Community Coalitions. That's our fiscal agent wanting to stay as a fiscal agent with us. Well, they have, so they're fine with us being under ADSD and them. So that means we can still obtain grants on our own in addition to what the state is. And then we'll work it out with our state people on that. So that's how that's going. So goal 3 was we wanted to create and sustain and a model of that, which is what we're all So this was a little bit longer. This was not a 60-day type thing. This was a 6-month type of thing to promote the access and awareness. So we are still in the process of some of this, but most of it we did create. So we did the follow-up report, which is what I'm sort of reporting on from the summit. We had a summit in July, and we had speakers like Jill, and we had people, you know, we had breakout rooms, and it was all virtual, and it was handled really nice, and we had a pretty good showing for, we did 2 half days, and it was really nice. We were excited because we didn't want to stop it just because of COVID, because originally we had planned it, of course, in person, but we were able to switch it up and work with a moderator to do that. So that makes it pretty easy. As soon as we got from the summit, we were able to follow up with these people, and we got survey responses back. We actually had a 95% response rate to our surveys, which is pretty good. Susan was upset that it wasn't 100, and we're like, 95 is pretty darn good, Jill, or Susan. So she was just like, but everybody should have responded. So since legislative is in action right now, we are part of that. We are we are working closely with AARP and Nevada Senior Services, who are big players for our legislative sessions here in Nevada, to get the word out and access and make sure people are knowing what needs to be done. We are prepared to write a white paper if necessary, or if, those that think that it would be helpful. Eventually we want to get to where, what Arch is doing, but on a state level, that is one of our goals. So we could be more of a force for the lifespan. Implementing the rural community outreach and awareness plans through the appropriate channels with each community. So this is attending different coalitions in different counties. I'm a member of 2 different coalitions, Lincoln County Coalition and Nye County Coalition. Those are rural areas, and like for Helping Hands, my respite grant actually reaches those. But when I'm at those meetings, I wear both hats of NLRCC and HHOBB. So I make sure that they know what's going on. And those that are on my distribution list, they know that I send out a ton of stuff. So, and most people are like, okay, thank you, we appreciate it. And sometimes they're really appreciative, and sometimes they're like, can you stop? So that's how we get that out. And for the summit, what we did is we did email flyers, we did print media, we did ongoing social media presence. So we actually, that's how we got all that done. And it was pretty exciting that we had so many responses. The other part within the 6-month one was to get 5 to 9 grants out. We did that. It was our goal was to, by December of 2020, we got it done by August 31st. We were able to hire a grant writer, and she submitted those for us, and it turned out pretty good. We haven't heard positively or negatively on those, but sometimes you won't. So unfortunately. So other section 4 in the short race for the 6 months, what we will do to build and strengthen our coalition. We are going to continue our outreach to the members. We did have a board nomination in November because it's annual, and that was done. So we do have a new president. I'm still the secretary, and we still have the same treasurer, but we did get some new board members, which is good. Fresh blood is always good. And it was one of the new members is with AARP, so that should help strengthen us and get a little bit of a different viewpoint since they are nationwide. We asked any summit participations to become members of NLRCC. We did that during the survey. We actually, gained new members that way, and they've been participating and active, so that's good. We've been maintaining what we hope is a strong coalition without funding even, and that's through just being the monthly meetings and the cohesiveness of the group. So that's been good, and making sure we get all the information out. We've been promoting the coalition through our social media, the website, Facebook. We don't have Twitter because I don't tweet or Instagram very well. Since I'm the social media person, they get Facebook. And generally the older generation does Facebook more than they do the other ones. It's the younger ones that do the other. So we have other people that focus on the younger aspect, and they're going to start working on the Instagram and Twitter pages that for us. So that way we have all of it going. So we had planned to focus on 1 or 2 initiatives with addresses which address the needs of the membership. So like we had Rave, who is for the kids there, and Nevada Infor, they're both going to be expanding to more of the rurals. They're opening up their area with new grants, and that will help the NLRCC because they're core members of ours. And so they'll be getting the word out and doing presentations, and they'll be doing those dual presentations. We have a new board member from Renown, which is a medical board up in Washoe County. And so that's a good way to help get the word out as well. So pretty much that went over everything that we did in our action plan that we had. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I think you accomplished a lot. It's awesome, especially without funding. That's pretty impressive.
Thank you. It was a lot of hard work. Our board is a very active board, which is good, and it adds to their 60-hour work weeks a little bit, but it's a labor and love for them. So let me ignore this. Sorry, I forgot to put my phone on D&D. So anybody else?
Yeah, Corey, this is Susan. One of the things that I noticed during the strategic planning meeting was how participatory everybody was. I mean, especially the caregivers felt comfortable. Sometimes caregivers are sort of muted, or there's a lot of jargon going on and they don't feel comfortable. And I didn't see that. And you mentioned that your monthly meetings, your monthly coalition meetings, local coalition meetings, and the larger coalition, you mentioned the cohesiveness of groups. So I'm wondering if you could just kind of demystify for us, how that came about and how that works. It's definitely beyond, you go well beyond just like coalition in name only. People seem really actively engaged.
We're all actively engaged, and I think as big of a state as it is, we treat it like, like I've never met Corinne or Amy up north in person, but I feel like they're one of my best friends, you know what I mean, type thing. So we work together really well, and part of that is I think we don't hold the meetings so formal that we can't joke around, and that helps a little bit because it breaks the ice and makes it where we're all sort of on the same page and going for the same goal, but at the same time we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish and what we need to accomplish. So they're sort of like this group. They're informal, but they're they're still getting things done, and that's what needs to happen, because if it's too strict and rigid, then you zone out.
Yeah.
You listen,
So
but you
can I
don't
ask a-
participate. So I think that helps a
So-
lot, being that, especially now that we can't be in person and do anything in person and it's all via Zoom. But on the other hand, I think Zoom has made it where we can reach more people a little bit, because I don't have to travel 3 hours to go to the Lincoln County Coalition. I can jump in my computer and I can actually see somebody. So as much as it's not been a great thing, it has been a good thing, because we're able to reach out more people, because we want to make sure, especially our seniors in the rural, they're not isolated and things like that. So we're really making the effort to reach out to them and make sure that they're, not as depressed and stuff. And it helps us too, because we want to hug people too, but we can't.
Yeah.
So I do have a question, Corey, and I've heard about the Nevada coalitions before. I just kind of wonder how they were formed. Are they all under the state? Like, were they formed under the same entity, or did they kind of all self-evolve and you guys have all gotten together? How did that work across the state?
So like most of them are not under the state, like Lincoln County Coalition, and Nye County. They actually started forming, and Riley Franco helped form the Lincoln County one based off of the Nye County one. And it was because Nye County is huge, Lincoln County is huge. So this was the only way they could come together and, they meet and disseminate information effectively and work together. So Nye County, I can travel an hour, 2 different ways to hit. Or actually an hour or more, 2 different ways to hit. So they're very, very rural, and the way our counties are done is very different. So this was the only way to make sure that we were getting information, and they realized that. The state will have a representative go to those, but they're not actually involved in them any more than a representative typically will go. One person, I think, Janie Ayumada is, she sort of has different members have different things, and we all just make sure we're getting the word out. So that's part of it. So like people up north didn't know that there was these coalitions down here. That's where I came in and I made sure they knew about them and things like that. So when we can travel, we do travel out to them in person and make sure we're getting information out and going. And
So they all kind of self-evolved separately, and then you brought them together
yes.
with not one entity trying to get coalitions to build across the state. It was just grassroots.
It was very grassroots. So yeah, because they realized, and I think the state may have had a little bit of help to push that, but it was mainly grassroots effort in the county's parts to make sure that they were getting information out, because without information, they don't get assistance and people don't know what needs to be done. So
It's pretty impressive.
yeah. We have some really good people in the state that are really big advocates for different areas, and they really are trying to make sure that our state is better. So we're very fortunate in that area.
Corey, are there ways that you can help like local coalitions when they're starting? Or, I mean, I think it's amazing, but I lived in Utah, which is also it's rural, and there's the volunteer work that I did there just allowed you to connect really closely with other people around the state in a way I don't experience like living in Seattle. It's completely different. Seattle's much more bureaucratic, and Utah is much more organic. So I think that part of it's just where the geography kind of dictates how people are with one another.
Yeah.
So then I think about New York, you've got both. You've got really rural and really urban. But I'm wondering, if there's a way you can help local people become stronger and connect. Like, how do they connect with the state? Like, I sort of get how that happens locally, but how does it all come together?
A lot of it is word of mouth. And so like when we tell somebody something, I have a lot of state people on my distribution list, so they'll see something, vice versa, or I'm on a lot of state distribution, so I make sure I get the word out to a lot of people. I probably have over 200 people that get my emails that I distribute, the Arch website information and different AARP information, things like that. There's over 200 different department heads that throughout the state that get that information. And Mesquite, I go up to Mesquite, which is technically Clark County, but they actually go to Utah a lot for their information because they're right next to Utah. So a lot of the areas, actually, we involve Utah in some of our stuff because of that. We have a lot of Nevadans that go to Utah and to get their medical or their shopping and things like that, and just because of the way the geography is. So I don't know if other states do that too, where they involve the sister state that borders it when the people are going there primarily for their care. And that's a huge problem for us because we don't have hospitals in the middle of the state.
Right.
Tonopah doesn't have a hospital. They're lucky to have a floating nurse.
Wow.
So they have to drive to Vegas.
Yeah.
Or they go to California, actually, Bishop, California, for their services. So, or 3 hours up north to Reno. So it's really, really, really rural. So we have a lot of helicopter flying in those areas for that kind of stuff, for paramedics and stuff like that. So that always amazes me. When we would go to Tonopah and present, we would do our presentation, then we would make sure we went out in the town as well and just talk to people. As funny as it is, we got more information when we were having drinks at a bar. We got more people involved with us. They were like, "What are you in town for?" And we're like, "This." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, we need you so much." And we were promoting that. And it was as stupid as it sounds, and I'm not promoting drinking. We were just sitting there talking, and we did a presentation for 2 hours that night, technically, if you think about it. Just being friendly and word of mouth in small towns.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really good information to have.
So
I'm also interested to know, you had hired a grant writer to write grants, but I don't think you said what the grants were for. What are you going to do if you get money?
it was more for access and awareness for the most part. We were also hoping to be self-sustainable and hire our own executive director. And since we are a 501, but we're not a 501c3, so we wanted to eventually become a 501c3, and that is still our goal. And right now we'll be under the state for the next couple of years, but this is only to help us become sustainable in or of ourselves as a coalition throughout the state, because obviously the state needs a coalition as well so they can get grants and things like that. And they want us to succeed. They don't want to house us. Jeff Duncan is very emphatic about that. He's like, we don't want you guys, we want you to be sustainable on your own. So he is very much in support of us being on our own and getting our own 501c3 eventually and things like that. So, but that just takes time, and it takes knowledge, and it takes an executive director. So as we progress, and we are progressing, we are going to hit those. Now that we are doing that, we will obviously have a new strategic plan. We'll be working on that this year, and we're hitting the ground running already. We've already got some of those meetings in place with the state on what we want to do and rearrange bylaws and how to do that. So it wasn't how we wanted to go. Not everybody was in favor of doing it this way, but you got to look at the silver lining and see where it's going to get you. And this will get us where we want to be and where we need to be as a state. So you just got to roll with the punches.
Can I ask one clarifying question? I think I heard you say that part of being under the state is that the state is paying for this new executive director for the coalition?
Yes, part of the grant funds will, because we didn't get our own funding that we
Right.
applied for. So they are going to have a contract employee be our executive director. And I'm sure that they'll have other aspects, because I don't know that it would be a full-time job, although if you ask Susan, it was a full-time job.
Right.
So yeah, Cheryl Donnell, who has been part of the coalition for years and years, will be offered the position. I don't know if she's accepted it formally, but she was my first thought and first hope for an executive director, just because she's been part of the coalition for so many years, and she's worked with the state as a contract employee as part of the, as a representative for the coalition as well.
Right. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you.
Did I answer
This is
that
Brooke,
question correct? How you were looking for it, Jill?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I was,
Okay.
I'm horrified that if I said that to you about, welcome to the 21st century.
Anybody else have any questions? I'd be happy to answer anything. I think I've answered everything, and hopefully I've done okay and not bored you.
You've
This is Brooke, and
done amazing work the last few years. I'm just really impressed with how far you've all come with the coalition. You should be very proud of everything you've done.
I've been a member of the coalition for a long time, and I appreciate your noticing that and saying that, because the more I think in the last couple of years, we finally come into our own a little bit more, and I feel a lot more confident, and I feel that we are making headway finally, instead of just having a name. And that, it took a little while to gain some traction, and it took different members to do this. And we are very, very, I think, like I said, I think we're gaining some traction on where we want to be, and we're finally getting some goals that are accomplishable, and we have some go-getter members, and that helps.
Yeah, fantastic.
Brooke, I think you had a question, huh?
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple questions, and I apologize, you might have said this, but in Eastern Montana, our internet's questionable, kind of like you said, it might be in your state too. My Zoom dropped, but my first question is you talk about in the plan the outcomes or effects of an ad campaign and the 60-day assessment of the coalition. Were those formal tools that you used, or how did you measure those things?
Well, you know what? My speakers, for some reason, went really mute. I'm sorry. What was the complete question?
It's kind of two questions. There's outcomes and effects of your ad campaign were part of your process there, and a 60-day assessment of the coalition. And I was wondering if you had formal assessment tools that you use for that, or how you kind of assess that. Was it informal or formal?
The outcome for the survey, we did the survey, and we did we had somebody keeping track of that and correlating it all into a graph. And I don't have the graph with me, but it actually was pretty good, and I should have thought about that. Sorry. I can find it and send it out. The person that mediated the summit, she kept track of all of it, and she made some really cool graphs and showed us how well we were, responses were. In regards to the Google, the website, we hit keywords and key areas, because we didn't want it to be the urban areas to hit so hard for the to focus on for the website. So we made sure we focused in the rural areas, and we picked some specific areas, and we paid to have Google Ads with the last grant that we did have a small grant, and that's how we got the website. And we paid to have Google ads, which is not exactly cheap, but it is very effective. And you can get it shows you where you're hitting and what your keywords and your click-through rates and all that was. So we got that, and it's been very, very effective. Like I said, we were surprised at hitting Elko and Ely and some of the smaller, well, they're the larger rural areas, but we're hitting some of the smaller ones too, and we're finding out what the keywords are. So we've learned that we need to keep adjusting and making sure we get fresh information. So COVID's a big one right now. So we're trying to get a lot of COVID information out there because that's what everybody's asking about and wanting to know. So once we get that, we make sure our web people put that up, and that's making sure people see our website as well.
And then, and you might have kind of answered this one too, but do you have a secret to getting a coalition to be active or to promote the coalition? I saw where you said you do, the websites and Facebook and such like that, but we have a statewide coalition right now, and it seems like members are just kind of weaning, and I'm sure part of it is because of COVID, but, and maybe we need to get smaller coalitions set up within the smaller communities because it is the statewide thing right now. And so do you have any words of advice or expertise or a magic wand to wave?
No, because we're still, we have ebb and flow too. And we've had years that it seems like we've not done a thing, and then years that we've been really active and powerful. And so like I house the Facebook page and make sure it gets out. As part of my job in the coalition, I make sure I just get a lot of information out, and people will be like, okay, what is this? And, through Google, we got a phone
Hello,
number
this is Doris.
because we don't have a brick and mortar office. So everything's virtual. So we did a Google phone number, and we got the website, and it's just clicking finally. And it's taken a lot of years. And there may be times where we go back down, but yeah, we're just, we have members that are wanting it to work now. So that helps a lot. It's getting the right membership and the right board that's gonna be active and going. And getting other county coalitions to buy into the state coalition, I think helps.
And then my last question for now is, you talked about the Kindle tablets in that program, and I think that's kind of where my Zoom kind of dropped me off, and I'm sorry if this is repetitive information, but how did you fund those tablets? How did you fund the ongoing internet? And then are those tablets things that people get to keep forever, or are you bringing them in and then sending them back out to other people, or how, can you explain that a little bit more?
That is a project through Seniors in Service, and they got a state grant for that. But we helped promote it. So the coalition promoted it. And they're one of our members. It was mainly through COVID, so it was emergency funds, but the people are able to keep the Kindles. How long they are going with the helping to fund the internet access, I am not sure. I could get back to you with that and let you know.
And how did you teach these seniors too how to use a Kindle? I mean, I need my 6-year-old to help me. So. Right?
Yeah, my 5-year-old granddaughter helps me every now and then. So they actually, that was through Nevada CAN, which is a state ADSD program. And it was through the ADRC. They did some training, and that was everybody sort of pitch hitted on that. And so did like AARP and things like that. So everybody went in and did as much as they could because they realized the importance of it. So it was just a buy-in from the entire state.
Mm-hmm. So did people actually go to houses during this time
No, I
to
think
train them?
I
Or?
would have to ask, and that's not, because I wasn't part of it, so I'm not 100% sure. I was just, I helped promote it. But I'm not 100% sure what they did with it. I think they actually put a link on there already, and you sort of, it was like a hit this type of thing.
Sure.
And then, you know, it had a video to get you started and then go from there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Anybody else?
Well, Corey, this is Susan again. I'm just thinking back to the strategic planning.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed, Doris mentioned that how much you've achieved and how rapidly you've achieved it. If I'm not mistaken, I think in our breakout rooms, that was one of the tasks, right? To identify what was short-term,
Yes. Mhm.
medium-term, and long-term. So that, I mean, you were thinking about that during the strategic planning, like what you wanted to
Yeah,
accomplish.
exactly. That was one of our goals during for the summit, was to make sure that we were doing that and that we had those specific questions in the breakout rooms. And we were originally going to let people choose what breakout rooms they wanted to go to, and then it was not really as possible, so we just went dink dink dink, and Marcia sort of broke them out how they were going to be done, so that helped. And it gave us a good mix of people, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't the only ones talking. We really encouraged during the breakout rooms to have the caregivers and other people speak, not us. We just wanted to moderate.
Are you talking about the strategic planning meeting or the summit? I think we're talking about two different.
I think I'm mixing them both in, but I thought that because we didn't really have breakout rooms did we have breakout rooms in the strategic plan?
Susan was at the strategic planning meeting, but I was at the summit.
Yeah.
There were breakout rooms at the strategic planning, and they were really fruitful. And that I mentioned before, caregivers really had a voice.
Oh, that's right. We did the slides. Yeah. Sorry. Too many things happening, too many distractions, plus the 18-hour drive back to Vegas this week. Sorry. No, but it was the same. I mean, the reason we wanted to do that during the strategic planning, I apologize, was so we could continue and sustain. And we can't do that without asking those questions and what we need to change and things like that. So those are all things that we had to ask those questions and get that input. So it was something we really encouraged.
Did you have an outside facilitator for the strategic planning, or?
Yes, we did. We had for the strategic plan, we did have an outside facilitator. We had Turning Point, and they were actually somebody that had worked with us in the past to try and help us gain traction and give insight and input. And they're Deborah and Sean Griffin, they're both members of other coalitions. So it's just contacts and different contacts and how we got and the word of mouth was going. So we just, again, it's everybody wants to make the state better. So we make sure we keep in touch with those people, and we're really trying to work with them. Just like like I said, whenever I go to a meeting, whether it be dementia friendly or whatever, I wear both hats. And I make sure that the word is there and we get interest in both things. I wear my work hat and I wear my NLRCC hat, and I talk about it cohesively. So.
And I think that's really important. It turned, when we did a study of the original grantees for sustainability, having that outside facilitator, and I think New York can attest to that because they have these like very strong partnerships, and they had Dr. Caprio facilitate, and Dina, you might, or Doris, is Doris still on? You might talk a little bit about that, how that investment, if you can make it, sometimes you can find a facilitator that doesn't cost, but if you have to pay, we're finding that that's a worthwhile investment.
Well, as I've said before, it has been a worthwhile investment for us, and we're very lucky because Dr. Caprio has been involved in the coalition evaluation for a very long time. So he understands what we're trying to do. And he was very effective. And we're hoping to move on to the next piece of sustainability using Dr. Caprio in the very near future. I was just trying to schedule those meetings today. So we're going to just stop letting COVID get in our way and do it virtually if we have to.
Yeah.
And I think that's where everybody's at, Doris. We have to, we were on hold for a little while and we can't be on
Yeah.
hold anymore. We have to go
Yeah.
forward and adapt and overcome. We'll use the, is it the Marines? They're saying adapt and
Like
overcome.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So,
And Doris, a good tech person is important if you don't have one. Jill, didn't we find ours for the research summit from Nevada? Is that where?
Yes, but I'm sure New York has good tech people.
But that
We're probably not going to bring them from Nevada, but no.
they can be anywhere is the thing. But it's like, yeah, that the Nevada's meetings worked really, really well. And then Arch did a international research summit.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the Arch Research Summit and how well that went technically.
We used the same technical person that Nevada used.
And she's fabulous.
Oh, well,
She's
and
one,
it's technical, so they
she's one of us.
can
She's
do it.
a caregiver and she's part of the coalition, but this is her area of expertise. So
Ah, that's good to know.
yeah,
Okay.
she's wonderful.
yeah, I
And you can do it
couldn't
from
go
anywhere.
to the Arch one because I was on vacation and I wasn't allowed to. But I did listen to the recording. So yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it was good. So
I think, this answers Brooke's question too about how do you keep a coalition engaged? And I think these summits that Nevada has held, that New York has held, and will be holding another one coming up, right? That these
Yep.
summits are really fantastic for keeping your coalition members engaged and moving forward with specific action steps.
I agree.
That's always critical for keeping coalitions engaged. They don't want to have a meeting just to have a meeting. They want to have a meeting to get something accomplished. So these statewide summits, and we've done them in Montana too. So it might be something you'd want to revisit.
Yeah, I know we had a summit when I first started, 7 years ago with the coalition, and then we had another one. So, I mean, there was a decent amount of time in between, and that way we were able to look back on what we did and what we wanted to accomplish in the different summits. So, because Jill was part of that many years ago too, so.
and Nadine's not on the call right now. She had to leave, but she does something a little bit different, Corey, than what you were saying, but that person-to-person contact, like going out into communities. They do lunch and learns, and we should probably tackle that on one of these sustainability meetings about how the nuts and bolts of engaging and keeping people engaged at the local level, and then like making sure there's a strong connection between local coalitions and the state coalitions, so that the policies that you think of at the state level are actually meaningful and supportive of the families using the services. Excuse me.
I like the happy hour approach.
Yeah.
I know, Doris, we'll have a couple glasses of wine on that one.
I know, it's been a long time, Corey.
We'll have to virtually do it during the summit, the break
There you
one
go.
coming up in June?
There you go.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
have to do a virtual happy hour.
I
That's a
think
good
we should.
idea. Good idea.
Okay, you're on the planning committee then.
Oh, boy.
For the grand meeting.
We could take that on. We could take that on.
So, anybody else? I appreciate you guys letting me speak, and I hope I did it justice and everything. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email, or I can leave my phone number in here too. That way you guys can reach out to me.
All your contact information
Well-
is on the Arch website too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering
I thought it
before
was
we-
great, Corey. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very good.
And I
Claire.
just-
Thank you.
And I just want to say, you tell Mr. Duncan that his friends from New York say hey.
I will. I'll text him in a little while.
Thanks.
I will. I'll tell him his competition says hi and she's better.
Yeah, there you go, because we're still doing rest. So there you go.
Yep. Yeah, I know the competition between y'all two.
We're very close to the hour, but I want to give Nick a second if he's
Yes.
with us, just to share a little bit about where you are. And it's been a long time since I've had an update about the Virginia Caregiver Coalition. I don't know if you have anything to add to this conversation about coalition building and sustaining a coalition.
So,
I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't need to talk today if you don't want to, but
well, I mean, this hour's given me a lot of questions to think about, and just what the Virginia Coalition's doing. I mean, when I came in, our coalition was kind of on the downward, when it came to engagement and participation. And I think we're just finally now starting to see more people trying to get involved. And I finally been able to, I'm trying to also kind of design myself after Arch when it comes to like how you guys distribute information and stuff like that statewide. But a lot of what I've run into is just how our coalition is structured in general. We're not, they're not a 501, but they're not really part of the state agency either. They're in this weird kind of in between, and we don't have any funding, but we can't really pursue it either. So it's kind of like a problem that I have to think about and figure, how the coalition can keep engagement and maybe stand on its own feet eventually without it falling apart, because there's no funding or there's no strong volunteer that'll kind of take it where it needs to go. So it's that's where I'm at, really. I mean, I don't know. I have a lot to think about.
well, having been involved with the Virginia Caregiver Coalition from almost the very beginning, I'd be happy to chat with you a little bit about the history. Not that I was on the inside and knew a lot, but I can tell you a little bit about how it functioned originally and the involvement with the state. And when the original state person left, that's when a lot of things changed.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Nick, we were in the same position in Nevada, and that's how we sort of decided we needed a fiscal agent so we could write grants, because without the actual 501c3, we were originally with RSVP, which is a rural senior volunteer program, as our fiscal agent. And then we hooked up with Healthy Community Coalition. So that way we could use their 501c3 and write grants that way. That's how we started writing grants, was that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a thought. That is one way to, try and find a fiscal agent and hook up with them and work with them. So maybe somebody that you guys know, Easter Seals. I know some agencies are with the Easter Seals and things like that. Those are just some that a lot of times will offer to be a fiscal agent.
Well, and a lot of it was, we had met, kind of the executive committee met like a year and a half ago to determine whether or not we were actually going to like dissolve the coalition and, either they should reform or what we wanted to do. And we kind of decided that we'd keep it as it is right now because our current chair didn't think he'd be able to move it through. So
well, these are important things to be
it's
thinking about right now too, because we're expecting the new funding opportunity announcement to come out from ACL. And I think Virginia is one of the eligible states for this round of grants.
Yeah.
And you do have to have an active coalition to establish a memorandum of understanding with in order to qualify for the grant.
And I mean, our coalition is really active in the educational kind of programming.
Yeah.
But they can't really advocate because of how they're organized. They can't advocate for policy because they're still technically part of the state agency. so they kind of get, you know, the thumb placed on them on that end because, you know. Okay. And that's, I mean, that's kind of why I came on today. I wanted to see, you know, what was going on in other states for kind of Virginia moving forward and just to think about what's going on with us. So
Nick,
I think all, you know, I think we all.
you're really welcome, and there's real peer-to-peer support through this group and really deep knowledge. So do you have local coalitions, or is it more centralized?
It's just the statewide coalition right now, but you know, it gives me a lot of to think of and to see if our area agencies on aging we might be able to get somebody to lead the charge there to try to get at least a regional coalition set up. A lot of them are already doing some sort of support groups and stuff funded through like the Title III funding, but maybe, and a lot of it has to, you know, I just need to make some more connections there to see if they can't maybe make a leap in that department to try to form a local coalition kind of in the same style.
Maybe time for Virginia to have another summit.
I know, well, and I wrote that down. That might not be a bad idea.
They're really
Everyone
fun.
re-energized and reconnected.
Yeah.
We can, you know, they are being so successful virtually. So just because we can't do it in person right now, I think it still might be worth pursuing that.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, as concerned as we were when we decided if we were going to dissolve it or not. I mean, we've come a long way from, you know, a year and a half ago.
Actually, I think our summit was more successful because it was held virtually, because more people were able to come. So you weren't able to do touch and feel type of thing, but I think it was more successful in the fact that we were able to get people in the rural areas, more key players from there that would not have traveled beforehand.
And you know, one interesting thing was in the very beginning, Virginia was the state that was doing virtual in camera ready conferences before anybody else was, with a whole, you know, whole different technology before we had Zoom. And that was one of the things that made the Virginia Coalition so successful, were these visual meetings, because people couldn't travel necessarily to one location. So can revisit all of that.
When I came in, you know, a little over 2 years ago, we were using Zoom. So by the time COVID hit, that wasn't anything new for us. And we actually had a lot more engagement than we had been using Zoom. But that's been nice that we didn't have to make such big adjustments because we were already doing that to begin with. But
I was wondering if somebody had like a list of topics or agenda items for coalition or summit meetings that they've had.
Yeah, we have
when
a
I
whole
think
page
about
on the Arch website on
okay.
summit highlights, agendas, discussion questions. We can help you with all of that.
Okay, thank you. Because to go from a virtual to the touchy-feely, you know, that's a big gap for us because we were touchy-feely and that's not working for us as much. Like those massages during the break rooms, that we can't do that anymore. Those were a hit.
We do miss that.
Yeah, we miss that.
The happy hours.
We'll have to toast each other virtually. Yeah. So no wine and cheese meals, huh?
No. But virtual is also less expensive than pulling off a touchy-feely in-person event. And that's also a very positive side to it. When you don't have to feed everybody, it's way more doable.
Yeah.
Anything else, Susan? Or no, just kind of basking in the glow of all this great dialogue and the wonderful presentation from Corey. Corey, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm hoping to hear about some summits coming up. Let us know.
We'll keep you posted.
Yeah, and let us know how we can help. And you've got, you know, a lot of good people that have gone before that can give you some guidance, and we're here to help.
What's the date of your summit again, Doris?
Well, it was May, and now it's September. So
Oh, I thought you said you were going to try to go ahead and do it virtually instead of.
Well, we're going to do the core team summit, not summit, the sustainability. Our core team, like we were working on when we did the strategic plan and all the, all that. We're going to move forward and see, really look at that. I've sent out all those documents to the core team, and we're going to regroup with Dr. Caprio and go on to the next phase of the planning with the toolkit.
That's great.
Good. Okay.
Okay, we're good to go, I think. Thank you.
Nice to see you
everyone.
all.
Yeah,
Happy New Year,
really,
everybody.
really wonderful. Okay, everybody
Take
stay
care.
well. Good luck getting a vaccine.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you.